Welcome to episode 58 of Accessible Finance, where we demystify personal financial topics and answer your questions so you leave saying, I get it now. I'm Eric Jones.
And I am Rachel Dodd.
Let's dive in.
All right, Eric. So, in one of our previous podcasts, we discussed how to have that kind of challenging conversation with your parents as they are aging to ensure that they are financially secure and
Okay.
taken care of in their retirement,
hmm
right? And so, we have seen varying levels of preparedness, both with clients, with people that we know, and just across the
All right.
internet, right? Um, And so I think that a lot depends upon the type of relationship that you have with your parents, how it's approached, and what the intention of the parents is as
Yeah,
far as legacy concerns go.
sure.
So we've seen variance
There's a
there.
large degree of variance there.
Correct. So I wanted to talk a bit about how to kind of have that conversation or the importance of having that conversation. And then going into how do you balance kind of those bucket list items, like if once you're retired, how do you balance those bucket list items and that budget that might be preventing all of those bucket list items from becoming a reality?
Okay.
So to start with having that conversation, right? You don't want to approach it as like, hey, you're not spending my inheritance on me, right? Like that probably is not going to bode well for you, right? So we know that that part is really
My
awkward.
dad would have laughed at that.
Well, that's exactly. So I think this points to one of the things that I was mentioning earlier is that the relationship you have with your parents is a huge factor here, right? So you absolutely would have approached it with with your dad, like, Dad, what are you doing? I would never have done that
Sure,
right
sure, sure.
there.
No, that wouldn't have gone as well.
No, absolutely not. Although I was very comfortable asking them when I was a kid, like, what's going to
That's
happen
funny.
when you die? Like,
Yeah.
will you have enough money? Um, and I think that it's really challenging for some people to talk money with their parents in general, right?
Yeah,
Like my
absolutely.
core money memory when I was a kid was watching my dad take out a wallet to buy something, and I felt such an overwhelming sense of guilt
Right.
that having any kind of money conversation with him whatsoever was just horrifying to me. Like I could feel my face turning red. I could
That's
just
funny.
feel it. And your relationship was totally different.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, I actually felt guilty about the amount of things that we would get, and
Yeah.
mostly that I would get to pick most of the restaurants that we ate at, much to the dismay of my brother and mother.
Shout out to the
Uh,
Christian's family.
I remember distinctly eating at
Yeah.
Copeland's and getting crawfish etouffee and being I mean, let's mildly remorseful that was like one of the most expensive things on the menu,
But not
but
enough to
didn't
not pick
deter
it.
me. It did not
Exactly.
deter me. And I just remember like my dad always just being like, no, 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 get it, get it, get it, definitely get it. And I didn't realize at the time, like I felt a lot more guilty before I realized that like his concept of money was just that it's just money, I'll make more.
And I think that's what's so hard though, because like as a kid, depending upon the relationship with your parents, like typically you're relatively sheltered from what actually exists, right? So you don't necessarily have any concept. Like we certainly don't tell our kids like what numbers in the bank account or anything like that
Sure.
because it's nothing that kids should have to worry about.
Right, right, right. Absolutely.
And so it's really hard if you haven't had those conversations throughout as you start to see them entering retirement to know, like, are they good? Like, those
Yeah.
worries and fears really start
Right. No, it's
creeping in.
right.
And so while we never had to have those conversations with our fathers, um, but our mothers, we are looking at having conversations with them as, concerned kids and making sure that they're okay. But how do you have that conversation in a way that is coming from an I love you, I'm looking out for you, I want to make sure you're safe and secure, and that we do what we need to do on the front end, and not seeming like you're
Don't
like, don't
spend
spend
my
the money.
money.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think that that's
Or
so
how much am I getting? What should I expect?
right, exactly. Please, please don't start working that into your financial plan. Like,
Yeah.
do not
No,
have
no,
the
no, no, no.
inheritance as your financial
Don't count the egg before they
plan.
hatch.
Correct. And so, like, how do you start having that conversation? And I think that the focus needs to be on ensuring their financial security rather than ensuring your financial security or your inheritance, right? So, I would not even start using the word inheritance,
No, 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 no.
but there are valid concerns about, financial security of your parent, particularly if you're talking a singular parent. I think that there are a lot of challenges that come with being by yourself navigating that situation
Sure,
too.
sure,
And so again, making sure you're picking the right moment and using a gentle approach. Um, so encouraging smart financial moves in a way that doesn't undermine their abilities to do things.
sure.
So let's talk then bucket lists and budgets and kind of some of the things that uh, people might want to do, and then helping them kind of match that with the reality of what they can do. So we've all heard that one like bucket list dream, whether it's like cruising the world or buying your own island, or we've all got that pie in the sky.
We all haven't heard
Dream.
that one. I don't think I've heard that one.
Buying your own island?
Buying your own island is a
Yes.
bucket list item?
That would be like your dream. Tell me that's not your dream.
I mean, it would have to have a really big mountain on it covered in snow, but
But you'd be also
yes, if such a place exists,
but
I'd be pretty happy with it.
but when you're talking that, right, like we start talking to people, we want to really get an idea of like what does your retirement look like? And we'll have people joke and play with like, oh, I'd love this. Then when it comes down to it and we're like, okay, but realistically, like what does your picture of retirement look like? It's interesting to me how often we have varying degrees of like people who've even thought about that, right?
I mean, yeah, you're right about that.
Yeah, right. Like we have some people who know exactly what they want their retirement to
Yep,
be, and some that genuinely
right. No, 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 I
don't
haven't thought
know.
about
So it's really difficult to make a financial plan for somebody who's retiring without knowing what that retirement picture looks like.
it. Correct.
So we've got
And
a lot of
there are a lot of conversations to be had there, right?
correct. So what kind of like questions we ask, or how do you have that conversation with somebody to help them hone in on what that picture looks like?
I mean, there are a lot of there are a lot of questions. Let's pull up the template.
We
So
do a
yeah,
lot of like
there's usually a yeah we have a bunch of questions that we have to choose from, and depending on responses and
yeah.
comfort with the clients or prospects, we'll ask a variety of them. But you really just want there's a lot more listening than asking, I guess. So
Hmm.
we're just trying to find what makes people tick. Right, what
Hmm.
makes people tick, what makes them happy, like, and that might differ from what they do or what they think might make them happy. Does
Yeah.
that make sense? It's like, "What makes you happy?" And they'll just start saying things
Yeah.
like, "Well, like, I played tennis or I played golf or whatever," but that's not truly it. They're like you listen to them talk about that, and then you might listen to them talk about interacting with their grandkids, and then their face lights up and their whole demeanor changes, their
Yeah.
body language indicates that they're, you know, actually radiant, right? Like, they're
Yeah.
actually super excited about spending time with their grandkids and their
Agreed.
kids and their families and things like that. So it's truly family. So you might explore, like maybe we can fund some family vacations. Maybe you
Exactly.
can take the kids on a, trip or whatever,
Hmm.
right? So the
Exactly.
kids and grandkids rather. So
Honestly, I don't think your mom's ever been as happy as she was when she got that like triple bunk bed for the for the three
that's
kids,
true,
right? Like
right?
it's just I think that when you're starting out that conversation to plan out your retirement, getting a really good feel of like what that looks like and what genuinely makes you as an individual or as a couple happy is so crucial. And so if you're working with somebody who
Yep.
immediately starts jumping into numbers and stuff like that and isn't having that conversation,
No, it's super important.
yeah,
You gotta know where you want to be, right? Like, you gotta know what actually makes people happy, or you're just gonna be spitting money out and they're gonna be not knowing what to do with it, or not necessarily not knowing what to do with it, but they might just get stuck in a pattern. I would also say that it's important to retire to something rather than retiring from something. So a lot of people will retire because I don't like waking up for work. Don't want to wake up at 7 a.m. and go to work 9 to 5 or whatever, right? Like, they just
valid.
don't want to do the thing.
Right.
Just completely sensible.
Yeah.
But, like, come up with an idea of what
What
is your
do you wanna do?
alternative.
Yeah,
Yeah, what does your day look like in retirement? So, like,
correct.
that's one of the things you might ask a client, right? Or, an individual that you're considering, like, working with.
Mhm.
Like, describe to me your ideal day in retirement.
Yeah.
Like, walk me through what you do.
Mhm.
Like, you wake up, now what? All right, you're awake. Like, where are we eating breakfast? Are you making it? Right?
Correct.
Are you exercising? What
Yeah.
does that look like? Like, what are you watching on TV? Like,
Yeah.
like, so it's you want to get a sense of, like, that they have some idea of what's happening, and that
Yeah.
you think and that really everybody's on the same page with, like, yeah, this sounds like something they would enjoy,
Correct. I
right?
mean, we met with a client last month who told us that, um, she was like, "I know I need to put on my tennis shoes and leave the house at least once a day in order to maintain, like, sanity and just physical like, wanting to be very physically and mentally with it for as long as possible."
Mhm.
And so being able to know that the self-awareness is crucial.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And some clients, like if you have been working the same 9 to 5 job for so long and you haven't had the opportunity to reflect on yourself or think about that, this is the time to do it for
Right.
sure.
Have those conversations. Think about it.
Correct. And then this is when afterwards that financial professional that you're looking to work with should be able to come back to you, restate what your goals are and what would make you happy. And then that can leverage into that conversation about financial balance. So
Right.
how can we make those things possible?
Yeah, that's a great point. Seamless transition. Well done. And so since I pointed to that,
Yeah.
it makes it less seamless. You like that?
But it was
You're all
so
excited? It was
no,
good.
it was,
So so what
but
we
it's
would do is
true.
work on quantifying the excess. What
Yeah.
do I mean by that? I mean, can a client spend $1,000 more a month,
Mhm.
$1,000 less a month? What's their annual excess capacity?
Right.
Maybe their probability of success right now is at 100. We've
Mhm.
talked about this before. Monte Carlo will simulate all the results for your portfolio. They'll simulate 1,000 results and they'll tell you what percentage of the time you ended your plan with a dollar or more, and that's deemed your probability of success. And you'll be able to put in all your goals, all your expenses, your capital expenditures, your new houses, vacation homes, whatever you're going to do. You can plug in all of the variables
Mhm.
and it will spit out a number that says, hey, okay, great. We plugged all these variables and played them 1,000 times
Mhm.
in 1,000 different market conditions. Better, best and worst of all time. And then this is the percentage of the time you won, or you ended your plan with a dollar or more. That's what they consider winning.
Yeah.
Anyway, we looked through that and we talked to the client about what these numbers mean, what they're comfortable with, because 100% probability of success, while that's great, and we all love hundreds on our tests, that's actually indicative of we are underspending.
Mhm.
That is a 100% chance of underspending, particularly given that most people are willing to adjust a bit. So if we
Yeah.
say, hey, you've got, you can spend 10 grand a month, but if your probability of success falls to 49%, we're going to say, we're going to rein that back and we're going to say, now you can spend 9 grand a month. Are you comfortable with that? And if
Correct.
client says, yeah, that sounds reasonable,
Then do it.
then we're good, right? Like
Mhm.
then we don't need to be anywhere near 90 or 100%. And we can, target an 80 or so. But anyway, the idea is, so we'll target an 80 and we'll look at moving the levers. Like there's
Mhm.
a ton of levers you can pull, right? That we're very well acquainted with. And so you would just move the lever and see how much excess they actually have. So some people, you might move the lever and you're like, it's kind of tight. All right.
Mhm.
There's not a ton. All right.
Yeah.
So we're gonna rock and roll with your
The
budget right
plan is
here.
was.
And if you want, we can plan on doing these things, but it means you're gonna have to cut from another area.
And
Some people you might look at and they have an excess capacity of like $15,000 or more per month. Okay. So we're talking
it's a
hundreds
pretty
of
big
thousands of dollars a
decision. Yeah.
year that they could spend that they're not currently,
Correct.
and they would still be completely solvent, completely fine. So we
Yeah.
want to really explore what that could mean. And some people just they're not made happy by spending dollars.
Yeah.
Because spending
Yeah.
dollars honestly very rarely make people happy. It's the
Correct.
things that those dollars procure for us,
It's usually
mostly
the
experiences,
experiences. Yeah.
that will increase the
Exactly.
happiness.
Well, and I think a lot of it depends on, and one of the questions that we really like to ask clients is like, what is your core money memory? Like, what was your relationship with money like growing up? Because those are the things that
Yep.
really color
Right.
how you're interacting with finances and money now.
Right.
And so if you grew up where money was really tight, you were
Yep.
very aware of that fact, like seeing that account grow bigger, you are hyper aware of how far you have come. And that is something that brings great joy. And so the experiences that really you have grown to love are ones that don't require
Sure.
a lot of money,
Yeah, and scarcity mindset's a very hard thing to break as well.
without a doubt,
So,
without a doubt.
because
And we've
there are
seen
people that just don't spend money because
correct,
they're just psychologically, it just doesn't sit well with them. When they
correct.
they experience, kind of a
Mhm.
dread and they experience a lot of anxiety around, like,
Right.
waiters and waitresses bringing them a bill that's
Yeah.
pretty high.
And that's not a bad thing.
No,
And I
it's
think
okay.
that the name of the game is really making sure that you have a retirement plan that fits your personality.
Yep.
Because we have clients and we've talked with people who are on both ends of the spectrum, right? The clients who
Spend too much, spend too
money is burning a hole in their pocket, and then the clients who will save, save, save. And they both find happiness in their respective
Sure,
aisles. And then when action needs to happen, that's what we're there for, right?
sure.
And I think that being able to really hone in on those levers, you had mentioned the levers before. Not all levers are tied to spending. although that is an incredibly sensitive one.
Right.
But some of the levers have to do with what age you're going to retire. Maybe the
Life
plan
expectancy.
changes based upon I really wanted to retire at 60. I don't really hate my job. I'm fine working till 65. That changes so much.
Mhm.
It might be I know that I have been diagnosed with cancer. I'm not going to live till 90. They're giving me, 5, 10 years. If I adjust that, how does that change things? So there's a lot of
Absolutely.
different things to adjust. I do think one of the things that we have seen people regularly, I think, mistakenly believe is that they're going to spend less in retirement than
Boy,
during
I
their
agree with
working.
that.
Yeah.
I very much agree with that sentiment.
And so
I don't want to spend
I
less
don't
in
either.
retirement. I want to be
Absolutely.
hosting.
Yeah.
Well, we've talked about this before.
We're about we have.
We want to host
Yes.
family vacations with the kids and their families,
And
right?
Christmas.
And our grandkids, right? So kids and grandkids.
I'm not letting go of Christmas
Yeah,
ever.
sure. No, hosting Christmas, hosting barbecues, like that's just the kind of, that's the childhood that I grew up in. So like I'm excited to perpetuate that with the kids.
Absolutely. And like those are the memories that I want them to be making and their kids to be making with us while we're here.
Absolutely.
And so, whether that is where you derive happiness or not, typically when you're trying to fill full days for full months, for full years, it costs money.
Right.
And so it may cost more than
Sure.
what you've been spending
And it might cost less,
ordinary.
but the idea is we want to be super intentional
Yeah,
and we want to actually think about concretely what your days look like. And
correct.
we want you to talk us through what you're going to be doing with your time and how that's going to impact your budget. Right. And then we would look at it and adjust.
Correct. Well, and I
But we
think
want to
that,
get a pretty good idea before we, move into retirement,
yes,
especially if it's one of these, if I leave my job, definitely can't come back. Right. Like
correct. Which a lot, I mean, especially like as people start aging in the workforce, usually the companies are kind of
they're not
ready to
as
say,
excited to hire them
to
away.
welcome you back.
Right.
And so, working with the right financial professional can help ensure that all of the needs are met, your emergency funds met, the things that you don't really want to necessarily think about are taken care of so that you can then have the peace of mind to go and enjoy the things that make your retirement worth enjoying. Um, and so I think that, you know, being able to have somebody to work with, right? To build the budget without jeopardizing the essentials, to give you that permission to go and, go on that golf trip or go to Universal with the grandkids or
Absolutely.
in your world, snowboarding.
Yes.
Always.
I've seen some older
Oh my gosh, I
ladies and older
know.
gentlemen on the slopes before, and I'm always excited.
We're literally
Yeah.
will be on the lift and he'll point out to me all the people that are older than us doing this just so that I know we'll be doing this forever.
Absolutely. I don't care if they have to reconstruct me with robotic parts.
Care. But
Well,
again, if
well,
that's you, you want to make sure you have the emergency fund sufficient to
yeah,
fund
absolutely. Fund
said
those medical
reconstruction.
bills. 'Cause I'm sure
Yes.
Medicare is not going to enjoy paying for all those surgeries. Although they're
No.
pretty good about it, to be honest, as long as
That's
it's medicinally necessary.
well, if you hurt yourself badly enough, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. They have to put it back together. They
Go
can't let it
big or
bleed out
go
on the slopes.
anyway, so next week's podcast, we are going to be talking about the golden years or the broke years and how to avoid retirement pitfalls.
All right.
So tune in.
Well, thanks for listening, guys. If you enjoyed today's episode, please rate, review, or subscribe to support the show. And if you have any topics you'd like discussed or financial problems you'd like solved, reach out to us at podcast@equilibriumfp.com or visit the website equilibriumfp.com.
Until next.
Thanks, guys.